On February 24, 2006, Stephen Brown was diagnosed with chronic lymphocytic leukemia. While some may have viewed that as a roadblock, he chose to view it quite differently. Steve says, "I chose to be bigger than cancer. I climb as a reminder to myself and to others that we have more in control than we might realize, and that all things are possible. I climb to conquer, I climb to cure, I climb to get on top of blood cancer, and I climb for those who cannot." Stephen Brown, welcome to our YouTube channel.
Thank you very much.
And it's a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be
now,
here.
You are a husband, a father, and a grandfather, correct?
Correct. Yep. Husband of 32 years, almost 30 and 28-year-old daughters, and 3 grandchildren, soon to be 4.
Amazing. Now, a lot of the people who are watching this video today are in, I guess, can use all the hope they can get. Many of our students are considered or labeled as at risk, and many are often at their wits' end, dealing with maybe addiction problems or family situations which are less than stellar. You came down with a cancer diagnosis originally in 2006 and a relapse in 2016.
Yep.
How devastating was that news to you, and how did you originally handle that?
It was extremely devastating initially. And being an athlete my whole life, of course, you kind of have that attitude. You're immune to certain things, you're doing the right things, you're healthy, you have a good lifestyle, but yet a cancer diagnosis. It came completely out of left field for me. One of my biggest challenges was, how do I tell my high school age daughters that their Ironman, marathon running Superman dad that they look up to was now going to be a cancer patient? So that was kind of challenge number one. You make the decision. You look at the road in front of you and you break it up into small little bites and you celebrate small little victories. If I were to, if I stand at the water's edge and I think about an Ironman triathlon and 140 miles ahead of me of racing, I'll lose my mind. Just like you get the diagnosis and you think, oh my God, what lies ahead? What are all the treatments going to be like? How many years do I have to deal with this? But small bites, right? You live to the next appointment. You live to the next session. In racing, you live to the next mile. You live to the next water stop, and you kind of celebrate and embrace those small little victories and give yourself credit where credit's due. And eventually, the bigger picture will take care of itself if you just concentrate on the old adage of how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And if you can focus your energy on that and keeping positive, it's amazing what you're capable of doing.
Now, I knew you when you were a student at Cabrini College. We were both Cabrini College graduates out in Radnor, Pennsylvania, back in the 1980s.
Yeah.
And now, tell our viewers, you've always been an athlete. You went to college on a scholar.
I did. So I grew up. Right? I grew up here in Delaware County.
Right.
Went to Haverford High School.
Haverford High School.
Haverford High. Landed at Cabrini.
Yes.
Won a soccer scholarship, and I was always an athlete. I mean, in high school, I played basketball, baseball, soccer, volleyball. That was just my thing. That was kind of what I did since I was a little kid and growing up in Ardmore. So yeah, and then even post college, I played a lot of soccer. Had a couple of pro tryouts coming out of Cabrini that didn't really pan out, but it was a great experience, and that's kind of what led me to, a friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to try this triathlon?" And I said, "Yeah, whatever, I'll give it a shot." And that was that was 86, 87.
So well before the cancer diagnosis.
Well before
you were
the
doing
cancer
this stuff.
diagnosis. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So how incredulous were you when you got this diagnosis? Here's a guy that's doing this kind of thing. You're in good shape, and then you get knocked down with this. I mean, were you like in denial at first about it, or what?
Yeah. So sitting in proximity, just like you and I are here today. Sitting in the office of an oncologist that I had really just met, and he had run a battery of tests: CAT scans, PET scans, bone marrow biopsies, more blood work, you name it. And he's trying to describe chronic lymphocytic leukemia to me. And my wife and I are looking at each other and looking at him like, come on, this guy's out of his mind. He's looking at the wrong chart, he's got the wrong patient, this is me, I race marathons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it took a little bit of digesting to really come to the realization that this was me that he was talking about. Mm-hmm. But I feel like I kind of quickly shifted the denial to, well, okay, so maybe I'm healthy enough to just power through this and beat this. And that's really where I put all my energies. You know, like I refused to let go of the things that were important to me. Having always been a fitness junkie and a fitness fanatic, and you know, getting such joy and passion out of being on my bike or being out on the run, I didn't want to let go of that. You know, that was a part of my identity. So it took some negotiating, but you know, we talked to the doctor about what I was permitted to do and what I wasn't permitted to do. Did some training right here in this YMCA, and when I was allowed to run, I ran, and oftentimes that meant running home from my chemo, and that was a powerful, powerful thing for me to do on many levels. You know, physically, it made me feel in control. I felt I must be okay, right? I just left the chemo chair, strapped on my running shoes, and now I'm going to run home. So I'm obviously in control, and I'm obviously winning. So, you know, physically and mentally and emotionally, I think it just paid huge dividends for me.
Were you scared initially? How scared were you?
Of course I was scared, but I was optimistic in that I followed my doctor's lead, right? And I had a couple of opinions, and both my doctor locally here, my guy down at Penn, and another guy at University of Maryland School of Medicine that I was consulting with, they all felt pretty good that, you know, I was young enough, strong enough, healthy enough, and the baseline protocols were effective enough that we felt like this should be okay.
Yeah, I would imagine one of the fears that came into play was that maybe you'd have to give up, you know, your athleticism.
Bingo.
Yeah, and I think, not to put words in your mouth, Stephen Brown, but is it safe to say that, you know, like, you didn't let the cancer was one part of your life, but it didn't define your entire life? I often tell our kids at school who may be battling addiction or, you know, overcoming dysfunctional backgrounds and what have you, it's one square in the mosaic. It's not the entire mosaic, and I love the fact that you say you can still control more things than you think you have the power to control.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely. I mean, yeah, you know, the whole multi-sport phase or mosaic of my life is just, it's one puzzle piece.
Right.
But the characteristics that go into multi-sport training and racing, and the discipline and the reward and the satisfaction, have so many real life parallels that I think all of this is connected, right? You know, you have a bad race, you have a bad training day, you have a crummy day at school, at work, on the road, somebody cuts you off. Right. It's all about patience. It's about being calm, it's about clarity, it's about focusing on the bigger picture and not letting the little things that are seemingly obstacles stop you from your forward progress of where you want to go.
Tell us what a triathlon athlete is. What does it entail for those of us that may not know?
So, your typical triathlon is a swim, bike, run event.
Swim, bike, run event.
Right, 3 different disciplines, 1 race, timed from the minute you get into start the swim to the minute you finish the run, and they are in that order: swim, bike, run. The distances can vary. The swims can be as small as a quarter mile, all the way up to 2.4 miles. The runs can be as short as 2 or 3 miles, and all the way up to a full marathon. So I've kind of done them all, full array of distances and races.
Wow. What is your training routine like today? Do you train every single day?
I try to do something every day, even if I don't have a larger race in the near future. If I'm not doing something every day, I'm losing my mind. So, you know, whether it be for therapy or just for baseline health, yes, I'm doing something every day. And then when I have the X amount of events on the calendar, and my peaks and valleys of training, you know, are all geared towards that cycle. Whatever race is coming up, I'll coordinate the training as needed. But I have to do something, and if I don't, I feel it, and my wife feels it, and we all feel it.
I see. Now, you also underwent chemotherapy, correct, in the past?
Several times. 54 rounds total.
54 rounds
from
of chemotherapy.
Early March of 2006 to 2016 when I had relapsed again.
Now we hear nightmarish tales about chemotherapy. How was it for you, Steve? Honestly, how did you deal with that?
Truthfully,
yes,
it was okay.
It was
right?
okay, really.
But I had the same opinion as what you just referenced, right? Everyone has this vision in their head of this dark, cavernous dungeon of pain and gloom and
nausea.
And chemo. Well, yeah, maybe I just have a strange, heightened sense of something, but I can say that I had relatively good experiences throughout chemo. Did I have some bad days? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: they were bad days, right? It wasn't a bad life. They were small speed bumps that I knew could be remedied by raising my hand and saying I needed some more pain, some nausea med, or taking a break from the chemo for 10 minutes to kind of regain my composure and let the hives go away that were breaking out all over my body, or just, you know, knowing when the day is over, it was time to go home, call it a day, start anew tomorrow. You know, I had a good experience, and part of it was I had fun with it. And I know that sounds completely insane, but I was the one who felt like I needed to be the class clown, kind of the way I was in college. I wanted to be the class clown in chemo because there were other people in that chemo suite, and even the nurses, who could have used a laugh, you know, when times can be pretty trying in that situation. So I would typically do something goofy.
Can you again name the ailment, the chronic ailment that you suffer from again?
Chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
Chronic lymphocytic leukemia. It's a blood cancer.
Would you like the elevator version?
Sure.
So yes, it's a blood cancer. It's one of the more common leukemias. Simply put, the lymphocyte cell is one of the cells that make up the white cell package.
White cells. Mm-hmm.
In my case, in this disease's case, the lymphocyte overproduces at a dangerous rate.
I see.
But it doesn't produce normal lymphocyte cells. It produces premature garbage that basically just gunks up the rest of your blood work. So it gets in the way of your good functioning white cells, it gets in the way of your platelets, of your red cells, ultimately your whole immune system, and then that's what, you know, trickle down, other organs become impacted.
Steve, tell us about the volunteer work you do. You go to schools and you speak at clubs and youth clubs and what have you. Why do you do that, and what does that give to you personally?
It gives me so much satisfaction because it feels that disease now has purpose, right?
Disease has purpose.
Has purpose. I jumped on board as a volunteer with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society within days or a week of my initial diagnosis in '06. They have a signature flagship fundraising campaign called Team in Training, where they work with wannabe cyclists, triathletes, and runners. I got certified as a coach in that program. So then I train people wanting to do a triathlon. You know how passionate I am about the sport.
Yes.
They raise funds and awareness for blood cancers like mine, and it's just been an incredible partnership. So that was just the first step kind of in this whole philanthropy journey around cancers and blood cancers. Since then, I've gotten involved with many, many organizations. I've been, and still am, a patient mentor. So I'm in a couple of national databases where, you know, Johnny Sample gets diagnosed with something, calls 1-800-CANCER or whatever number, and wants to be aligned with someone else who's in his same situation. So I've been connected with other patients and been able to, you know, talk them through their initial fears, their treatments, their prognosis, and it's been an incredibly rewarding experience. And again, it makes me feel, I feel like I've turned the tables on cancer because I'm able to use it for so much more positive.
Right. And what would you say directly to our at-risk population about their challenges and problems, having gone through what you've endured at this point?
So I personally have experienced a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And there was several points in my life where I looked around and I looked to the skies and I seriously said, what now? What's next, you know? I firmly believe in the power of belief, and whatever that means to you, right? I thoroughly believe that there is hope for tomorrow. Get through today, get through this minute. Do whatever you have, whatever you can do within your heart to buy yourself a few minutes, to buy yourself a few days, to buy yourself a few weeks, because the storm always settles, right? The sun is gonna set, and I promise you the sun is gonna rise, because it has every single day that I've been around, and it's gonna rise for many more days to come. Be patient and believe in yourself.
And you're mentoring. How important is it for our kids maybe to have a good mentor, someone they can confide in and talk to?
It's a great idea. We all need somebody to talk to. You know,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Sure.
Yeah, patients and clergy, or teachers and clergy, and I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
You need to sound some things off of some people, right?
Yes.
And you know, I can't speak highly enough about having that go-to person or that mentor.
Steve, what do you do to pay the bills? What do you do for a living? What's your occupation?
So my grown-up job is I work for J.P. Morgan Chase in Wilmington, Delaware, on an operations team.
I see. Very good. You've been doing that for many years, have you?
I've been doing that for about 7 years, but I've been in that industry basically since college.
So were you a business major in college?
I was, yeah.
An MBA kind of thing? MBA?
Yeah, I don't have my MBA,
Oh,
but
okay.
I have my undergrad in business administration.
Now, you also wrote a book. Tell us about the book. It's called
Relentless
Metal. My Cancer, My Rules.
Yep.
Is this book still available?
Still available, both in paperback and on all digital channels. So you can go to your Amazon or your
Amazon.com.
your Nooks or wherever. And yep.
And you're also on Facebook, correct?
On Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, SIM.
Do you have a website as well?
Remissionman.com.
Remissionman.com.
Nice play between my cancer being in remission and Ironman. Put them together, you've got Remission Man.
Great. I would love to invite you to come out to the youth center and talk directly to our kids one day. Would you do that?
Happy to. Be more than happy to. Looking forward to it.
We'd love to have you and go into a lot more detail. Steve, you're an inspiration. Thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Many blessings.
You too.